Welcome to the Tachyon Pulse. I've just realised that Strange New Worlds has got another thing that is confusing. That makes me go, huh? That pretty much breaks canon and leads me to think even more that if they get chance, they will remake the original series. And that it's not Prime Universe. Let's get into it.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
La'an, Noonien Singh is a character that I adore, don't get me wrong, and she's very pretty. Very good dancer as well. But her existence aboard the Enterprise has always confused me. Because when Khan Noonien Singh turns up, and they've already mentioned that that's an ancestor of La'an's, I've always kind of wondered, why doesn't Kirk and Spock recognise the name? But now, Spock is having a romantic relationship with La'an. I really don't understand it. I remember actually a time, years ago, I was in a town over from where I live. And I was talking to this girl and we were getting a bit, wee. And she just sort of says, oh, I've got family in Telford. And I just happened to go, oh, what's the name? We might be, I might know him or something. And she went, oh, what's the chances of that? And told me her second name. And I went, we're cousins. And we genuinely were. Now, not by blood, before anybody freaks out, and we never got that far. But still, soon as she said her name, I went, oh, I know your family. Your uncle married my auntie. I knew straight away. My point here is, why didn't Spock go, Noonien Singh? Not related to La'an by any chance. Well, not that Khan would know that because you know his granddaughter. But you would go, oh, I've had her. It's like, I made a joke on the community page sort of going, I've at very least snogged your granddaughter. High five! Don't mean me hanging, Khan. Come on, buddy. It's like, I don't understand it. Now, there are certain things within the sort of continuity of Strange New Worlds that obviously we've talked about in the past, and some oddities with Spock's character, full stop. But you could argue that during this period of the original series, Spock is trying to be more in touch with his human side. They've said it as much, and that explains why he's different to the Spock we knew from the original series that was more in touch with his Vulcan side. And that something could happen between basically Pike, or the last couple of years as Pike, and then when we see him in the original series. It would also explain why in the pilot episode where Pike was the captain of the Enterprise, set a couple of years before the original series, why Spock was different in that. Even though in reality it was because it was the pilot and they hadn't quite formed the character. But that's boring to have real reasons why something's different. It's more interesting to sort of try to retcon these things and come up with an excuse on why it was the way it was. But that would explain it. It's a stretch, but it would explain it. The whole thing with Kirk being on the Enterprise every 5 minutes, and again, I've joked in the past that it's sort of like the reasons for him being aboard the Enterprise have got a little bit more desperate as they've gone along. I mean, in the last episode, the reason why Kirk was in it basically is he wasn't there, he was a hologram. But, they just randomly picked him out of everybody that's ever beamed aboard the Enterprise, because they basically did it from his transporter record. His transporter record was basically the only way they had enough information about somebody to create a realistic hologram. That was desperate. I did feel like in other episodes where he's just turned up randomly, that it did feel a bit like he was like, I think I left my keys here, or I think I left my wallet here. Has anybody seen my communicator? It was getting a bit desperate that a couple of times a year, basically, Kirk just appeared aboard the Enterprise. Because I've always argued, Kirk doesn't really know Pike. Now, in the episode that obviously we see him and Spock basically steals the Enterprise to go and take, I wanted to say Spike from Buffy then, Pike, back to that planet with all the, the psychics, so he can, at least imagine the rest of his life is not in pain or whatever. Yeah? Kirk wasn't as bothered. Kirk acted like, and I think he even said in the episode, or it used to be canon, that he'd only really met him when Pike became fleet commander, fleet admiral, and they basically met in the transfer. But again, this is a stretch. But you could actually say Kirk and Pike haven't had that much contact. He tends to have contact with other members of the crew. So you could argue that they're not really friends. They haven't really spent a lot of time together other than maybe the finale of the first season. So again, at a stretch, you could argue that they're not technically breaking canon. Now, they have broken some canon with Khan and admitted it. And this is, don't forget, Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman have always said, even though this makes no sense, that Strange New Worlds and Discovery are the Prime Universe. Basically the same timeline, the same universe as TNG, DS9, Voyager, the original series, and Enterprise. So, the timeline should be the same, but it's not in a lot of places. But the most obvious one of those is that Khan is a little boy. When La'an and Kirk went back in time that once, he was a little boy. He should have already basically had the Eugenic Wars. Is that right? And but they've said, and Akiva Goldsman just said this openly, said, look, we have edited the timeline there to make it more in line with sort of reality, so you can still suspend disbelief, because we should have already had those wars. We should have had, or pushing World War III. I think we should have already had World War III if the timeline stayed the same. So they basically said, we just edited it a little bit just to, have that believability, and, don't worry about it. I think they just need to admit that this is a different timeline, if I'm honest. Just admit it now. Because we are getting lots of little things that are building up to the point where you're like, this is a different timeline, come on people. But the thing with La'an, now basically dating Spock, that is, you are really suspending disbelief to not go, right, in the Wrath of Khan, or the episode where we see Khan aboard the Enterprise in the original series, that Spock at no point goes, Noonien Singh. At no point goes, oh, I've snogged her. It makes no sense. And that Kirk knows La'an. We thought they were going to have a relationship. They had some sort of connection. And again, he should have gone, oh, I nearly snogged your great-granddaughter. Do you know what I mean? At no point did they go, oh, Khan must be nice because we've been like his granddaughter, and we don't know why she's not in the original series, and we don't know why that character disappears off the Enterprise at some point. But at no point did anybody do that. It doesn't make any bloody sense. It just doesn't, and I don't think even the most hardcore defender of Kurtzman can say it does. And to be honest, it's a biggie. Now you can obviously say that like, this show is a different show, so continuity, canon, it doesn't really matter. It's a different show. Calm down. Now, I would say that's true to a point. They make the odd mistake in continuity. Look, they did in the original series, they did in TNG, I think they did in Voyager a couple of times. I don't remember if they did in DS9 or nothing jumped out at me, but they were always like minor details. They were never anything too big. There were some jumps of logic from time to time. Like in the second season of TNG, how LaForge just managed to like magic out an engineering degree. We don't know how that happened. He went from being, aboard doing ops sort of thing, or he's the pilot actually, wasn't he? He went from I fly the ship to I am head of engineering. That was a leap of logic, but we let it slide because they needed to correct the ship a little bit. So there's always stuff like that. But there has to be a line where we go, come on. Like, now you're just taking the piss. I feel like Kurtzman's taking the piss. But what do you think, guys? Like I said, yes, there are differences, but some of them, there are ways of retconning it so that it still makes sense. But some of them really are just head-scratching. And some of them downright break canon that shouldn't be broken. And to be honest, even having La'an Noonien Singh aboard the Enterprise at this time period was pushing it. They could have had that actress with any other name and avoided this problem. But they chose to do it. Which again just screams at me that these people don't really care about Star Trek or what they're doing. But guys, get into the comments and tell me what you think. At what point do we cross a line and just go, no, enough is enough now? And have they already crossed that line? I know a lot of you think they have, but not everyone. Tell me where you think that line is. Or doesn't it matter at all as long as, they don't absolutely take the mick, which I think they have. Get into the comments, tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. It really helps us out, and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member of the channel and get to see a lot of these videos before everybody else. Go check it out. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.